Oh, hello.
Hello.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yeah, hi Edvar, how are you?
Okay, fine.
Good. Nice to hear that. Nice to hear that. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak to me. I really appreciate your time. It's very helpful to be able to talk through these things with someone who's an expert because I'm quite sort of new to the field myself. So it's brilliant to yeah, just to be able to chat through these things. Would you like me to kind of give a bit more of an explanation of the program that we're making, or shall we sort of dive into?
Yeah. Tell me about your program, about your idea, and about the BBC channel that you are interested to make this program, in which framework?
Of course. So it's a two-part documentary that we're making for the BBC, primarily for transmission in the UK. So we're sort of designing it with a British audience in mind, but it might well be sold around the world as well. We never know, to be honest. That's up to the BBC to decide. So the core idea of the program is that it's a genealogy program at its heart. And it focuses on 1948 in Israel, Palestine, as a kind of key moment in history. And we use 6 family history stories to kind of explore that and unpack that historical moment a little bit. So we've got 3 Jewish stories and we've got 3 Palestinian stories, and all of those will be explored through a British Palestinian today who's kind of uncovering their ancestry a bit more. We'd never obviously be able to cover all of the events of 1948 in a 2-hour documentary, but hopefully by having a very sort of specific look at individual moments that these families experienced, we can just kind of open up this period in history to a British audience, because I mean, I'm sure it's very different in other parts of the world, but in Britain, frankly, people don't know much about 1948 at all. And a lot of the time nowadays, people are quite afraid of talking about it. So we're hopeful that we can kind of open up this bit of history a bit more. And as
but there are books about it. There are books, so people don't read books or don't read the
Well, unfortunately, the British public is not very good at reading books. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's our role is not to make a comprehensive sort of history here. Our role is to make a documentary that just gives an insight into some specific moments, and then if people want to go and learn more, then it's time for them to go and read some books.
Yeah, because the public in Britain are not interested, or they are not aware they are not interested in Britain, or they are interested in this in Britain, or they are not.
Well, I think it's a bit of a mix, actually. I think a lot of people are quite interested in it, but don't really know where to start with something. And I think that's where the BBC can come in with a little bit of help there, because it's quite a sort of trusted source, as something that's not, sort of taking a kind of hard line side on either direction of it. It can be seen as something that sticks to sort of the facts quite well. And that's something that I think people in Britain are always sort of quite worried about, that, when you come into a topic like this from a blank slate, from not knowing anything, it's kind of very difficult to know kind of what you're hearing, whether it's true or not, whether it's of a particular narrative or that kind of thing. So that's, again, something that by focusing on just individual people's specific experiences, we hope to sort of sidestep a little bit of that sort of mythologizing and narrative making that's obviously gone on over the decades.
Yeah, because they read the news and maybe they don't read the history, maybe they don't investigate, maybe we just read the news and they don't care maybe about the past.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and hopefully that's something we can change a little bit. So obviously the reason why I've got in touch with you is that one of our stories is of a family of Greek Orthodox Christians, Arab Christians, who are from Jaffa. They'd moved to Jaffa in about the 1860s from Syria, I think, fleeing the sort of Lebanese-Syrian civil war then. What we'd love to find out more about is kind of what their lives would have been like in Jaffa. So we know that they lived in Ajami, which I understand is quite a sort of well-off neighborhood. And we know that they worked and had a business stamping the orange crates for export. But it would be great to chat about what life was like for Christians in those years leading up to the Nakba. Because my understanding is that it was a fairly prosperous time, and that after the Second World War, it was a bit of a boom time, a bit of a renaissance for the orange industry there. Is that the right categorization of that?
Yes, it was Jaffa. It is the main town of Palestine during British Mandate and also late Ottoman period, because also from the Ottoman period it was important port city. It was also important for the pilgrimage that made the railway station of the 1892 and to help the pilgrims from Europe and from USA and from the Christian world to come to Palestine. And there are memoirs of American pilgrims and also Russian pilgrims, and also mainly from Anglican missionary. There were several missionaries who came to Palestine during 19th century. After the Napoleon conquest of Palestine, European missionaries and enterprises became interested in the Ottoman Empire in the Holy Land to restore the Holy Land to the Christian world. Indirectly, not by converting. They cannot convert people to Christianity, though they can do missionary enterprises, like Scottish missionary, like for the Anglican Church, Anglican from Britain, and they made some enterprise to convert Jews to Christianity by the Anglican Church called the mission. It's called like Jesus for Christ. It's called also London Society among promoting Christianity among the Jews, like Jews for Christ. Is originally that the London Society promote Christianity among the Jews to translate the Bible to Hebrew, but there were other missionary enterprises from Russian to the Orthodox and the Catholics, like from France and from Italy. But in the 19th century, yes, Jaffa became prosperous. Yes, and the Christian Maronite had built the Ajami neighborhood in Jaffa. Ajami means in Arabic like foreigner or Persian. In the Old Arabic it means Persian. Ajami in Old Arabic means Persian.
Right, I see. I didn't know.
Or foreigner, like you say Mu'jam in Arabic mean dictionary. If you say in High Arabic, Mu'jam mean dictionary.
Okay.
It is built by the Maronite Christian family in the 19th century who came from Lebanon after the massacres and the problem with the Muslim majority, but also they wanted also to build their own neighborhood. The Maronites, they have their own place in Jaffa, and it is became more famous after the 2009 film of Ajami.
Okay, and so with Jaffa kind of having these kind of different communities, obviously you've got Ajami with Christians, you've got Manshia with Muslims, and then obviously to the north more Jewish residents. Was there sort of before the Nakba, was it a place with quite a lot of coexistence happening? Were the communities were they working together, or were tensions sort of already getting quite high?
There were tensions, of course. You know, when there were riots with the Jews in the 20s and the late 19th century, yes, there were tensions because the Jews wanted to buy land and to buy homes and to migrate from Europe. So they came to the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire didn't persecute the Jews. And the British Mandate had facilitated the Jewish immigration. And the Christians mostly were more educated than the Muslims. They had more prosperous clerical position in the mandate, like in the government, due to their knowledge of the foreign languages and to their knowledge of knowledge of history of Europe because of their education. They got education from the missionary enterprises that were mainly to the Christians. So Muslims mainly didn't study much. There were a few Muslims who had the knowledge how to read and to write. Most people didn't know how to read and to write. And some Muslims were notables who were paying the money to send their children to study in these missionary schools. But some missionary schools don't accept Muslims. But usually there were Rashidiyya school and there were some Arabic people in school, but mostly they didn't had this high position in the clerical with the government in the British Mandate. But however, there were Muslims also in the Mukhtar. Mukhtar means that the head council. There were head council. There were like landlords and landowners. But some of them were educated, but mostly weren't like they didn't have their own schools much. They have few schools. They had few schools.
Yeah. Okay.
They didn't have much schools like the Christian had. They didn't have hospitals like the Christian had. You don't find many Turkish hospitals. How many Turkish hospitals you find? You find Austrian hospital. You find French hospital. find the British hospital, English hospital, call it in Netherlands or British. You don't find the Ottoman hospital much. You can find one in Jerusalem, but you don't have much investment of the Ottomans in the education. There were library in Jerusalem, and there also the oldest pharmacy is in Jaffa, in the British Mandate. It is in the 20s also. It was very important pharmacy for the public, but you know, the farmers came to work in the orange orchard in Jaffa. It was very rich in culture, agriculture for the orange and the orange juice, and it is you know, the peasants, فلاحين. They were also from other Arab countries, not only from Palestine, who came to work in the export of the orange. And Jaffa is a strategic point that has port to export it to other countries outside Palestine to Europe.
Yeah. Okay.
But also, I want to say that there was a Muslim Christian association during the British Mandate against Zionism. But sometimes Christian Muslim relations were good, sometimes they were bad, but usually they were okay. But during the Nakba, I don't think that the Jews did differentiate between Christian and Muslim. They didn't differentiate between the Christian and Muslim, because the Christians also, like Michel Isa, was also fighting against the Irgun and the Haganah in the 1948.
Okay.
So,
it was the sort of...
also some Christians stayed, some Muslims stayed, some Muslims were expelled, and some of them were also expelled. And later on, the Bulgarian Jews came to settle in their homes. The Bulgarian Jews mainly, who came to Jaffa after 48, the Bulgarian Jews.
Right. Okay. Yeah. As in the same as in the Bukharan Quarter in Jerusalem.
No, there's no Bulgarian quarter in Jerusalem.
Oh, Bulgarian. Beg your pardon. Yeah, I'm with you. Bulgarian
quarter, it is different, and Bulgarian Jews, I say.
Yeah. And so I understand that during the Nakba, once sort of a lot of the residents had fled the city, it was decided by the Israelis to sort of ghettoize the neighborhood of Ajami and to push all of the Arab residents into that one neighborhood. Why was Ajami chosen for that?
Ajami, I think that it is important and prosperous and famous district. It has many Arab residents. It has also important institution of the British Mandate, and it has also other things that were beneficial for the Jewish authorities. But afterwards it became neglected. It had institution during British Mandate, the Ottoman Empire, but now it became neglected after 48. They wanted to have more Jews live in Jaffa rather than the Arabs, because it was mainly Arab neighborhood. So they want the Jews to live inside the Arabs. So they need to do some strategy to make Jaffa and Tel Aviv one city, like 1950. And they want to confiscate the lands and to Judaize, to make it more Jewish, because they wanted the Jewish majority in Jaffa after 48. Yeah.
Okay. So why was it then that they chose Ajami as the neighborhood where they push all the Arabs into? I mean, I get the feeling, you know, if Ajami is quite a sort of wealthy neighborhood, you sort of get the feeling that maybe that would be the area where the Jewish people might want to take over and push the Arabs into a less good neighborhood, if you know what I mean. Or was it more geography? Was it just that Ajami was on the coast? It was you could sort of tuck
strategical point. Ajami, I think that it is strategical. It is central point of Jaffa during that time. It was this very important location for the location, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
And also the institution, and it was very famous in that time because Jaffa was prosperous. Tel Aviv still wasn't prosperous at that time. So they need them to get out from there and rebuild it to make it more Jewish characteristics.
Okay. And do you know much about how sort of politicized the Christian community, and particularly the Greek Orthodox Christian community, would have been in Jaffa? Would they have been part of the sort of maybe a pan-Arab movement or a Palestinian national movement, that sort of thing?
Mostly Orthodox Church has Greek clergymen, so they were also discriminating the Arabic-speaking public community of the Greek Orthodox minority and community during the Ottoman Empire and the British Mandate. So they were more pan-Arabism and more against the Greek hierarchy of Athens, and that were also having the control over the Greek Patriarchate in Jerusalem. They don't allow any Arab speaking Orthodox to become a patriarch, but only a minor priest. And so they were more to Arabize. They went more to Arabization. So that's why we have Palestine. We have the newspaper Palestine 1908, mean 1908, 1019 and 8. We have Palestine newspaper that by Isa al-Isa, he is Orthodox Palestinian, that made this newspaper. And yes, it is more tending to Arabization, more tending to get education from the Russian missionary in Palestine and the Russian institutions. And they were also, they have problem with the Greek Orthodox administration, because they wanted their own church to be independent from Greece, like other churches in Balkans, like Serbia, like Bulgaria, like Romania. So there's no Arab Orthodox church. So and the Greeks think that these Christians in Palestine are not Arabs, are originally Greeks that were Arabized afterward. They want to control the church and its authorities, and it is, clergymen, and they want to remain it is as Greek language in the prayers. Yes, they were struggling Arabization. The Arabization for them and the Arab nationalism is more important for them, and they are more close to the Muslim Arabs. But they also got other education from Russia, and because of the church, because Russia is considered for the Orthodox community as the protector of the Orthodox community in the Ottoman Empire. So, but they stayed until until the World War I. Afterward, didn't continue. But I think that they had their own institution to re-educate in the Arabic language, and many of them didn't like the Greek patriarch, that they were also now like selling the land to the Jews, and they aren't working for the interests of the Christian Orthodox community in Palestine.
Yeah. Okay.
So more pan-Arabism, more pan-Arabism for the Orthodox Christian minority, because they have called millet. The millet in Turkish means the domination. Millet, Rum means of the Orthodox millet means the Rum millet in Turkish means they have different regulation in their Orthodox community. According to the millet, they have their own courts, they have their own autonomy, and they were recognized by the Ottomans and by the British Mandate. But during the British Mandate, there was no millet, was no limitude, they didn't discriminate the Christians, as the Ottoman discriminated the Christians.
Right.
So the British Mandate for the Christians was better than the Ottoman period.
Yeah. Okay. Even though they had a bit less autonomy, I suppose they were a bit closer to the heart of the system then.
Yes. It was different. The Ottoman Empire, they stopped imposing the jizya from the 19th century, from the second half of the 19th century. But the discrimination continued, and the millet system continued. But still had the laws of the Ottoman Empire still exist, and because the laws of the Ottoman Empire gave the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate their own autonomy after the 1774 Kuchuk-Kainarji Treaty, that if Russia conquered this Crimean part of the Ottoman Empire, so then Russia will become the savior and the protector of the Orthodox, and then the Ottomans will become protectors or the Caliph of the Muslims for the Crimean Tatars. And in this agreement, there was some items that the Orthodox Greeks will remain autonomy and remain their control in Jerusalem.
Yeah. Okay. And since 1948, obviously the community wasn't sort of explicitly forced out, but I mean, most of them did leave. Is there still much of a Christian community around Jaffa today?
There are Christian minority in Jaffa. There are few. There are not much. Most Jaffa residents are Muslims, and the Christians mostly are a minority. But you have churches in Jaffa. You have their own, um, neighborhood. Sometimes neighborhood are not mixed. Sometimes because my neighborhoods are not mixed between the Muslim and the Christians. But I also say that the Christian Orthodox is still minority in Jaffa among the Muslim and the Jews, so they're still alive. They still exist there because not everybody left Jaffa after 1944.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And are they? Is it a bit of a sort of separated community now? Are they sort of spread out over Jaffa, or are they sort of still quite tight sort of collections of communities of sort of Greek Orthodox in Jaffa? I ask this because one thing that we would love to do in our program is to go and meet with an elderly member of the community who could tell us sort of firsthand a little bit about what life was like during the Nakba and before the Nakba as well.
Yeah, but the Muslim and the Christians, they live together in their own Arab neighborhood in Jaffa. But some of them live near the Jewish part. It depends where they work. But they have their own also part. They can be mixed also. Like they have neighbor Muslim and neighbor Jews. They cannot have their own quarter. There's no quarter. There's no Christian quarter in Jaffa.
But yeah,
they have to be together. They cannot be, separately. And I think that Jaffa has coexistence. They have more good relations and less religious conflict, like in Jerusalem. Jerusalem has this conflict, less problematic.
Yeah,
it's more tolerant.
Yeah. Okay. And thinking about the orange trade that was so prominent in Jaffa, and that we know that the family we're researching, the Sabana family, we know they were involved with it. I read somewhere that when the sort of battle for Jaffa was coming, it got sort of delayed, it got a bit postponed while people waited for the harvest season to happen first. Is that right? Was the industry so powerful to both Arab and Jewish communities at the time that even fighting got put aside while the harvest was happening?
I think that it is a part of their living, how they can live, that time they can live, how they can survive economically without producing the orange, because that time they didn't have other kind of living, agriculture and export. They didn't have other means.
Okay.
That's why they needed it to survive. So without it, they cannot, survive economically. And they think that also during the World War I in the Ottoman period, there was famine here. There was sometimes famine in Jerusalem and Palestine. So they have very bad experience when the Ottoman army was taking the crops. So there was no food for them, and they have to do something to put the food somewhere in the storage. So that for them it is the main source of living. So they needed it to survive. They don't want it to be destroyed.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, must have been very, very dominant in the life of the city then. Yeah. That's that comes across a lot. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. You've managed to answer all of my questions. So that's really good. I really appreciate that. It's as I said at the start, it's quite difficult to sort of get my head into the right sphere to sort of understand the intricacies of how these different sort of communities work, religious communities work inside Jaffa, as it would have been back then. So it's great to speak to you about it. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. It's really appreciated.
Yeah, do you have more questions about it? And you will put it in the BBC channel?
Sorry?
Will you put it in the BBC channel? Like which program will be? Like what's the name of the program?
Oh, so well, unfortunately, we don't have an official title for the program yet. We're running with a working title called My Family, the Middle East and Me, which we might call it that, and then have a suffix to do with something about 1948 or Israel Palestine, or it might get a completely different title altogether. I don't know, I'm afraid. But yes, it will go out on the BBC. In the UK, it'll be on BBC Two. I don't know how it'll get transmitted across the rest of the world, but that'll be, I think, in the sort of third quarter of next year that we'll be looking to broadcast. Yeah, we sort of film later on in the year, so we've still got a couple months left where we're we're just doing research at the minute. But if I have any more questions, is it okay if I just drop you a line to see if you can answer any of them?
Of course, you can.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you
Yeah, and
very
will
much.
be broadcasted to American audience, or the Americans are not interested?
I don't know. So we're commissioned to make, we're an independent production company. So I don't work directly for the BBC. I work for wall-to-wall television. And then the BBC have commissioned us to make this documentary for them, primarily for a British audience and for broadcast in the UK. It's up to them. They sort of have the rights over the program of what territories it goes out in. So they can then sort of sell it on to whether it's their commercial arms of the BBC in different parts of the world or to different broadcasters. So to be honest, I'm afraid I have no idea at the minute what their plans are.
Yeah, but also regarding Jaffa and other parts of the Christian minority, there are something that I wrote about it in my book, and you can read the bibliography and check the sources. But I can give you more sources if you need something specific, like that are not from the books, like could be from interviews from Al Jazeera about the pharmacy and about social life and public life in Jaffa is important, about. But this is something like for them argumentative. It's argumentative between the two narratives. The Arab Jews, they have different narratives, and they are also sometimes they don't have good relations between each other. So, but usually they want to coexist in this Jaffa. I see more coexistence and less tension.
Yeah, no, and you're right. It's really important to see that. And yeah, I will do. I'll have another skim through your book, and if there's any particular primary sources or, yeah, as you say, interviews or something that you've done that you might be able to fill me in a bit more about, I'll let you know. That could be really helpful to us.
Yeah. If you need more help and information, I can give you. And there are some recorded interviews that I find in past. I remember in Arabic, but it's not in English in Arabic. So if you need something about somebody, I will try to find and to write what he said about it. Oh. So we have recorded interviews in Arabic. But of course, you can interview someone else. But where are you going to Israel?
So as I say, we're filming in September, October. And then we've got two sort of research trips in between then. So my director and one of our producers, they're in Israel at the minute, actually, on a recce. I think they're in Jaffa, Tel Aviv tomorrow. And then at the start of August, we've got another research trip. So yeah, lots of sort of meeting people while they're out there and checking out locations. It's because of the kind of format of our show being a genealogy show. A lot of it's about our sort of modern day contributor. It's about their experience as well of learning about their family. So the kind of places that we take them to and the experts that we introduce them to, the particular documents that we get them to look at. All of that is obviously very important as well from a sort of format point, as well as the kind of the history, the sort of wider context that they're learning at the same time.
Yeah, so they want to go to interview somebody or go to some places?
Well, that's what our director's figuring out at the minute on his recce. But certainly, if I need any sort of recommendations or anything, then I will let you know.
Yeah, and who's this recce? You told me recce. Who's this recce?
Oh, like so it's our director on a sort of fact-finding trip.
Okay, so you can write me about them when they are going to Israel and what their program, what their plans to visit, and because they will do some film.
The filming's in September, October, so just planning at the minute, just research. Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you will publish this documentary, you told me.
That's next year, probably around August, September, I think, but I'm not sure.
Okay, will give me. You are recording this, yes? You are recording this our interview.
Yeah, but just only for research purposes, not for broadcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you will cite me about it. You will cite me.
Yeah, if there's anything in particular that we use from this chat, but normally these chats they're just research. It's not sort of credited or anything.
Okay, it will be helpful for your broadcast.
Yeah,
it will be helpful.
Yes, yeah, it is very helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Excellent. Right. Well, I will let you know if there's anything else we need. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Speak soon. Take care.